Hare Krishna. Thank you, Pawan Prabhuji, Shriya Mataji, for facilitating chanting today. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Sarva Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshururmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadeshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavranda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. Okay, so we'll continue with our prayer for this week. Vrindavana Ramya Sthana. Anybody would like to sing today? This month of Kartik, take up this service of singing this wonderful bhajan by Srila Narottam Das Thakur.
I can sing, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Samarish Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Vrindavana Ramya Sthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Manohara Aprata Kalindi Nire Rajahamsa Kelikare Tahe Sohe Kanaka Kamala Taramathe Hema Pita Ashtadale Vestita Ashtadale Pradhana Naika Taramathe Ratnasane Vasiya Chedui Jane Shama Sange Sundari Radhika Urupalavanya Rasi Amiya Pariche Kasi Hasya Parihasa Sambha Sani Narottama Dasa Koye Nitya Lila Sukhamoye Sada Spuru Kamora Mane Vrindavana Ramya Sthana Divya Chintamani Dhama Ratana Mandira Mano Hara Ratana Mandira Mano Hara Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Radhe Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Would you like to read the translations also, Prabhu?
Yeah, sure. Beautiful Vrindavan is filled with Chintamani gems and many jewels, palaces and temples. Many regal swans play in the waters of Yamuna, and in those waters a splendid golden lotus flower grows. In the middle of that lotus is a golden place surrounded by 8 petals. On these 8 petals, the 8 principal gopis reside, and in the center, Lord Syamasundara and beautiful Srimati Radharani sit on the jewel throne. The great beauty of divine couple and their charming joking and laughing continually showers nectar everywhere. Narottam Das says, I pray that these blissful, eternal, transcendental pastimes of the divine couple may be always manifested in my heart. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Amresh Prabhu. Well, श्री वृंदावन रम्य स्थान प्रार्थना की जय, श्री नरोत्तम दास ठाकुर की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Hare Krishna. Thank you for reading. And yes, in this month, most auspicious month of Mahamercy, as we are calling as for Kartik, yeah, these prayers and these benedictions are so powerful. And this month, when we sing these prayers, of course, maybe be bestowed by mercy of these acharyas who have composed these prayers, so that just like them, we can develop love of Godhead. Okay, let's continue. Srila Prabhupada Leela chapter 45, about book distribution and how book distribution is pleasing Srila Prabhupada so much. He was saying yesterday that this is when I hear the reports of these book distribution, I become like an energetic young man, right? Even though he was probably around close to 80 years of age that time, 78 years of age. But these reports of book distribution from all over America were inspiring him so much that the devotees were distributing more than almost 6 million pieces of literature, Back to Godhead magazines, over 4 million Back to Godhead magazines, etc. So those were huge numbers for the whole year. And every year it was just increasing and doubling almost from 1973, what was achieved in 1974 was almost doubled, sometimes even 60-70% increase. So, and they were getting so much of transcendental ecstasy by sharing this, because bhakti, as it says, we have to practice bhakti and we have to share bhakti. So we have to do both. Like Sanatana Goswami used to, again, in the mode of humility, these Goswamis would encourage and inspire each other. Like Sanatana Goswami used to say to Haridas Thakur, you chant, because Haridas Thakur used to chant 192 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, right? And but Haridas Thakur would praise Sanatana Goswami that you are so wonderful, you preach the glories of the Lord so much. And Sanatana Goswami would tell back to Haridas, no, you have both achar and prachar. You're chanting and you're also glorifying the Lord and preaching the glories of the Lord. So you are the best, right? So like that, each of them would complement the other in a mode of humility. So like that, both achar and prachar should be there. So we should practice bhakti and we should share bhakti. And that is what these devotees are trying to do, following in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, by following their morning sadhana, morning routine at the temple, and then going out and distributing. And they see how people at the airports, they're meeting so many people. Yesterday we were seeing an example of a lady who was going through terminal cancer. She was about to die. So when she was given the book Beyond Birth and Death, she said, thank you. She thanked him so much. And then later again, she came back to thank him for giving her that book. And many other businessmen, attorneys, etc., also were there. So it was not always hunky-dory and all rosy. There were also a lot of objections and a lot of counter arguments from people at the airport. But like Prabhupada said, as a practicing devotee, we sadhu is always tolerant. Right? There will always be, even though we are sitting on the horse of bhakti and galloping back to Godhead. That is our goal when we are sitting back on the horse and galloping back to Godhead by performing our achar, performing our practice of bhakti. It helps us, but still the material winds will blow against us. So the faster we ride, faster the material winds will blow against us. But we have to hold on to the reins of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. So if we keep in touch with instructions of our Guru, of the Sadhus, of our predecessor Acharyas, and our Shastra, by reading Bhagavad Gita, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, by reading our literatures, spiritual literatures, then we will be able to tide against those material disturbances. And Prabhupada is personally saying this benefit that they'll get is, millions and millions of times more by doing this book Sankirtan, book distribution. And especially if we do this in the month of Kartik, like we are doing. So each word, Prabhupada says, of Srimad Bhagavatam is is so powerful, so powerful, so powerful. Not even one shloka. If somebody reads just one word, just one line, one word, he was saying his life will be changed. So that is the power of Acharya's words. So again, this book that we are reading, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit, also, like we have said, is non-different from Bhagavatam, because Bhagavat is of two types. One is a book Bhagavat, other is a person Bhagavat. And our Acharyas are personifications of Bhagavat, because when we read their Leelas, their pastimes, that is what Bhagavatam is all about. So by reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit, also we are purifying ourselves immensely, because each word of this wonderful book, Bhagavat or Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit, is immensely potent. Okay, so let's continue this adventure with Srila Prabhupada. We are holding on to his stick, holding on to his dhoti, and following along with him. All right, beginning in 1974, Srila Prabhupada utilized the BBT profits for constructing his main temples in India, Vrindavan, Mayapur, and especially Bombay. Rameshwar informed the devotees of this special function of the BBT. Srila Prabhupada is personally overseeing all the Indian programs and spending. If 1 rupee is misspent, Srila Prabhupada becomes disturbed and chastises the devotees mercifully. This money is earned by the sweat of many devotees. So why you are not careful? Srila Prabhupada wants to see our Vrindavan temple, Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir, completed by Janmashtami. Prabhupada wants to establish Sri Mayapur temple as well. One interesting note in this connection is that in India, I have been told that 10 paise purchases 1 brick. 10 paise means US dollar 1 cent. Just think, every penny you collect may buy 1 brick in India. Every penny counts towards these transcendental goals. These places in India, Prabhupada wrote, are spiritually potent. By establishing temples in Mayapur and Vrindavan, we assure that the purity of our movement will be kept intact. In October of 1974, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Hamsaduta, his GBC secretary for Germany, "Whenever there is any publication in any language, it enlivens me 100 times." Although Srila Prabhupada's order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was to preach and publish in the English language, he had expanded that order to include all the languages and countries of the world. "My first concern is that my books shall be published and distributed profusely all over the world." Srila Prabhupada had written to one of the first devotees in Europe in 1972. Prabhupada wrote always in English, but ever since 1968, when ISKCON had first begun spreading to other countries, he had been talking of printing his books in foreign languages. When in early 1973 a German edition of the Bhagavad Gita had been printed, Srila Prabhupada had written Hamsaduta, "You have done the right thing by printing Bhagavad Gita in German language, and I very much appreciate that you have done this great service." By the summer, Sankirtan parties had been traveling throughout Germany, distributing several hundred copies of Bhagavad Gita a week. Hamsaduta had promised that he would translate 1 book a month into German, and when in the fall of 1974, Prabhupada heard of 6 recently printed German translations, he replied, "This is very happy news for me. Thank you. Overflood Europe with German books." Srila Prabhupada said that whenever he published a book, he felt that he had conquered an empire. His books were the basis of the spiritual revolution that would eventually change humanity and save it from the pernicious effects of the age of Kali. "Produce voluminously Spanish language literature," Srila Prabhupada requested. When Hridayananda Goswami had become the zonal leader for South America, Srila Prabhupada had instructed him to emphasize printing and distributing books above opening temples. "I also was printing even before I had big temples in the US," Prabhupada had written. "So you may follow the footsteps of the previous acharyas." Hridayananda Goswami had organized a Spanish BBT in Mexico and had made book distribution his priority. Early in 1974, when the Spanish BBT was ready to print translations of Srimad Bhagavatam's first volume, Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada wrote, "By printing these books of our Krishna conscious philosophy in so many different languages, we can actually inject our movement into the masses of persons all over the world, especially there in the Western countries, and we can literally turn whole nations into Krishna conscious nations." When 100,000 copies of a Spanish Back to Godhead were printed, Srila Prabhupada wrote, "Now give them to everyone." Spanish book distribution became the second largest in the world, next to American. Bhagavan, Srila Prabhupada's representative in Southern Europe, had been printing in French and Italian, and as early as December 1972, he had printed Prabhupada's Easy Journey to Other Planets in French. By the beginning of 1974, 3 parties in France were distributing daily 1,000 books, including a French Bhagavad Gita as it is. Already, Bhagavan had printed the first Italian Back to Godhead, and a French Sri Ishopanishad was forthcoming. Wherever devotees went, they knew their program was to chant Hare Krishna, follow the regulative principles, and arrange for printing and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. When the first devotees had reached South Africa, they had proceeded just according to Srila Prabhupada's desire, and he had replied to them, "Your report is very encouraging to me that you distributed 110 Gitas in 2 days in Cape Town." Srila Prabhupada often thought of having his books printed in Russian, and he wrote to the Minister of Education and Culture in the USSR, suggesting they publish a translation of the ancient classical Vedic literature, namely Bhagavad Gita, as already published by the famous London publishing house of MSS Macmillan Company. He also talked with his disciples about printing Russian translations in America. Whenever Srila Prabhupada met an interested person proficient in any foreign language, he would request that person to translate his books. In 1972, he had written, "I'm also very encouraged to hear that Japanese language translations of some of my books will be brought out soon, because without books and magazines, what authority or what basis have we got for preaching?" Similarly, Srila Prabhupada had written to an American devotee in Indonesia, "I'm especially happy to hear that you have got a Chinese boy there who is doing some translating work. Yes, the Chinese speaking portion of the world is very huge, and it requires to infiltrate gradually, especially by distributing our literatures widely in Chinese languages. So his service is the greatest to Krishna." Later, when Prabhupada heard that the Chinese boy Yashomati Sutta had finished translating 3 chapters of Bhagavad Gita into Chinese, he wrote that they should immediately print those 3 chapters as a small book. ISKCON Australia rose to prominence in the book distribution competition, and by 1974 was competing with LA ISKCON and the Radha Damodar Party for world leadership. By the fall of 1974, about a dozen top Australian and New Zealand distributors were selling daily more than 20 big books each. The centers in Australia, like those in America, more than doubled their book distribution between 1973 and 1974. When book distribution had just been beginning in America in 1970, no books had been available in England. But within a year, Krishna book distribution had begun there, and Srila Prabhupada had written, "All of my disciples in London Center are very intelligent, and they should unite around this single task of selling Krishna book widely throughout Britain." By 1974, the devotees in Britain were valiantly distributing books. During one busy 6-day period, they distributed 600 volumes of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, 400 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and 1,000 Back to Godhead magazines. India was special. There, Srila Prabhupada had introduced book distribution through the ISKCON Life membership program. Wealthy Indians were more inclined to accept the books as part of an ISKCON membership package, which included such benefits as free accommodations in ISKCON temples throughout the world. But in India, as elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada wanted his books distributed to colleges, to libraries, to prominent citizens, and to the masses. By the end of 1974, Prabhupada's disciples were ready to print Hindi and Bengali editions of Back to Godhead. When Srila Prabhupada heard that Western devotees in India were complaining of insufficient engagement, he replied, "I'm pleased you are selling many Krishna books daily. All our men should go out with books. There is sufficient engagement." To his GBC secretary in India, he wrote, "Engage all of them in book distribution specifically and take with you some Sankirtan party. Without books, we will make no progress in India." Srila Prabhupada returned to Tejas, his temple president in Delhi. Prabhupada had also trained his leaders in India in the strict policy of 50-50. Proceeds from life membership or any other collections should go 50% to the BBT and 50% for construction and other projects. On his order, the American BBT had been making donations of books to India, and by 1974 had donated $300,000 worth of literature. Although America was the leading pioneer in book printing and distribution, Prabhupada foresaw worldwide printing and distribution of his books, eventually to surpass that in the US. Srila Prabhupada had created transcendental competition among his disciples. In 1971, he had observed with pleasure Keshava in San Francisco leading the society in Krishna book distribution. Prabhupada had promised that he would leave LA and stay in San Francisco if Keshava out-distributed his brother Karandhara. And over the years, he had continued to instigate such competition, fanning the fires of book distribution. He would encourage the leaders to send him reports, and then he would respond with letters, raising the book distribution fever even higher. The whole of ISKCON waited to hear the latest quote from Prabhupada, inspiring them to go on and on. When Srila Prabhupada had given the lecture in January 1974, stressing, "Distribute books, distribute books, distribute books," Several devotees in the audience had vowed on the spot to dedicate their lives to that instruction. And when Prabhupada had sent the handwritten note down from his room in LA, everyone should go with the Sankirtan party as soon as possible, that one line had created a spirit of sacrifice and dedication in the hearts of many disciples who felt themselves destined to take up that order as their life and soul. Although Rameshwar had been caught up by the waves of the Sankirtan ocean from the beginning, Srila Prabhupada cast Rameshwar service when he wrote, "Make program to distribute our books all over the world. Our books are being appreciated by learned circles, so we should take advantage. Whatever progress we have made is simply due to distributing these books. So go on and do not divert your mind for a moment from this." When devotees in London reported Srila Prabhupada their increase in book and magazine sales, he responded by inviting them to compete. "I have heard that in San Francisco they are selling daily not less than 75 Krishna books. So I am very much encouraged to hear this. Now take the spirit of transcendental rivalry and consult with Dayananda and others there in England to become the first-rate booksellers." When writing to a sannyasi disciple preaching in Scotland, where the devotees were perhaps not fully aware of the scope of the book distribution in the US, Srila Prabhupada mentioned the latest book scores from New York and commented, "New York is leading their list." Srila Prabhupada also inspired the society as a whole to compete with its previous year's efforts. Somehow the book distribution must be doubled and tripled as far as possible. Do it. As soon as the BBT Library Party had been formed, Prabhupada had told the members to get 50,000 orders, and he had asked the Radha Damodar Party to expand to 100 buses. The competition was particularly high between Los Angeles, the Radha Damodar Party, and Australia, and Srila Prabhupada encouraged them all like a maestro, calling for a fortissimo from the orchestra. Srila Prabhupada was not giving careless, boastful instructions. The determination and sacrifice required to achieve these seemingly unattainable goals he knew well, and he wanted his devotees to work as he worked, with total dedication. He wanted them to try their utmost. His was the logic of hunting for the rhinoceros. He said, if a man attempting to shoot a rhinoceros failed, no one would criticize him. But if he succeeded, it would be considered wonderful. Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga, "Your Sankirtan reports are very encouraging, especially that one girl, Gauri Dasi, has set an all ISKCON women's record of 108 big books. This is very wonderful. Formerly, this would have been considered impossible. But now, by Krishna's grace, everything is becoming possible. Encourage them all to increase more and more." Some devotees became confused by their god brothers and god sisters' rousing calls for competition and rivalry. This seemed like the rivalry of the material world, which they had hoped to leave forever. Srila Prabhupada, however, explained the proper attitude of transcendental competition. Competition and profiteering spirit are always there in the living entity. It is not that they can be artificially removed in some matter. Factually, we saw in Russia that by removing competition and profit calculation from society, the people were not at all happy, and still these things are going on. So we shall not expect that we are any different. Only difference is that our profit is for Krishna's pleasure, and our competition is how to please Krishna more than someone else. Even amongst the gopis, there is competition to please Krishna, and there is envy also. But this envy is not material, it is transcendental. They are thinking, "Oh, she had done something more wonderful than me. That is very nice. But now let me do something even more wonderful," like that. So I am pleased that you desire for competition with your god brothers to spread Krishna consciousness movement all over the world by printing our books. When a traveling Sankirtan party from one temple intensively distributed books in another city, the authorities at the local temple would often be disturbed. This problem came before Srila Prabhupada, who was inevitably called in to judge and to cool down the fires of competition. Prabhupada wrote to Keshav and Bhutatma, who had traveled all the way from San Francisco to London to distribute books, but had disturbed the devotees there by their fervor. "Ultimately, it shall be up to the local temple president if the presence of your party is favorable or not. Everything considered, if he agrees, you may stay. Otherwise, if he judges it is unfavorable at the time, he may order you to go out. But just to avoid these things, better to arrange in advance with the GBC men concerned. Ours is a cooperative movement, with Krishna and the advancement of Krishna movement at the center, and we must continue to sell as many books as possible. But discuss everything amongst yourselves and do it nicely without irritating anyone. That is the art." Seeing the mighty efforts of the top book distributors, some devotees became envious, or at least dispirited, thinking themselves useless and unable to please Srila Prabhupada. This problem also came before Srila Prabhupada, who replied, "There must always be competition. That gives life. That cannot be separated from life. The perfect society does not eliminate competition. But it eliminates envy because everyone is weak before Krishna. But competition had its limit, as Prabhupada explained to a doubting brahmachari in Florida. It is not so much important the quantity of books that we distribute, but that we serve Krishna as best as we can and depend on Him for the result. But it should not come to the point of making us lose our Krishna consciousness. When you have these feelings, do not mistake it for enviousness, but take it to be an indirect appreciation of the service done by your other God brothers. This is spiritual. In the material world, when someone surpasses us in some way, we become angry and plan how to stop him. But in the spiritual world, when someone does some better service, we think, oh, he has done so nicely. Let me help him to execute his service. Competition might have been a catalyst, but by steadfastly distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement were experiencing the essence of loving service to Krishna in separation, which is the highest spiritual ecstasy. Don't try to see God, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master had often said, but act in such a way that God sees you. In other words, by submissively acting on the order of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, Prabhupada's disciples were sure to attract Krishna's loving attention. The quickest way to catch Krishna's attention, Srila Prabhupada said, was to direct another person to Krishna consciousness. The book distributors therefore felt a special reciprocation with their spiritual master, and this impelled them to go on serving and distributing. Sanjay. Philosophically, we saw that going out and distributing books was what our spiritual master wanted us to do. We knew that. That was clear to us. We also had a real sense of idealism that these books and magazines would change the world. Once you come to Krishna consciousness, you actually see how crummy the world really is, how really contaminated things are, how envious people are, and how horrible material life is. You can see that. You don't feel that you yourself can change it, but you feel that whoever gets one of Prabhupada's books and looks at it will be changed in a spiritual way. There was no question about it. We also felt a big change would come in the world in the future as Krishna consciousness spread. Prabhupada also said that if people just touch one of these books, their lives will change. Our faith was in the books and Srila Prabhupada. Keshav Bharati. When you pass out a book, there is a certain reciprocation from Prabhupada. There was a dramatic difference in our internal experience when a person would take a book compared to just taking some incense or something. We would actually experience Prabhupada's association all day by distributing those books. We didn't feel left out just because certain devotees were physically closer to Prabhupada. Book distributors always got strong enlivenment. We would read about Haridas Thakur going out and rolling on the ground and begging people to chant. That kind of thing would inspire us. Vaisheshika Maharaj. He had Prabhupada's books and different letters from him. And we also knew that if we distributed lots of books, we could get our name in the newsletter. And we would think of how Prabhupada would read it. But I was just trying to keep up with the others. Sometimes I would go a couple of hours without giving anyone a book. Everyone else would just be passing them out like crazy. I would try, and people would all but spit in my face. They were pushing me around. It was very heavy for me. I would sometimes just walk off and start crying. It was so heavy. But I knew this book distribution was pleasing to Prabhupada, and I just wanted to be part of it. We used to think how Prabhupada was spending so much time behind a dictating machine just writing these books. We would meditate on how he would sleep just a few hours a day and minimize everything else to write these books. So we were also trying to cut down our other activities and just go out and distribute books. Prabhupada said a devotee should live in the mood of the six Goswamis. So we were singing these prayers every day. We felt a real connection. Even in the beginning, a devotee told me, "Where is Prabhupada? Do you know?" And then he said, "He is in his books." That mood was always there. We always felt that connection. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's pause here and let's feel that connection by reading these books, by distributing these wonderful books. So we see all these are glorious devotees, disciples of Srila Prabhupada, Vaisheshika Maharaj, how much he has done in the last 5 decades. This has become one of his prime service to Srila Prabhupada, that he has written many inspiring books and he has inspired devotees not just in Silicon Valley but all over the world. And his book that he has written, this is Our Family Business, in a book by Vaisheshika Prabhu is a very nice read. And like I said, he has inspired many devotees with all over the world in distributing the books and reading the books also, right? page by page become a sage. There's an app that he inspired devotees to create, which encourages devotees to read these wonderful literatures, page by page. How many, if you read, 2 pages a day, and depending on the number of shlokas, the number of pages Bhagavad Gita has, Bhagavatam has, how many days it will take us to complete that book. But it's just a good way, because if you only when you measure things can you improve, right? So just like at work, also in our offices, in our profession, we have metrics, we have dashboards, we look at data, right? We see how things are doing, how our systems are going, how our customers are interacting with our website, or how our customers are interacting with our apps, how the users are using, right? So we see all of these metrics, and we see that, then we know, okay, how it is being used and how we can improve, like that. So that is the same spirit Prabhupada is talking about. The numbers that we are talking about, it is transcendental competition. When we see those things, we are able to measure, and we are able to continue to inspire others and grow beyond. And like Prabhupada said, this is not envy, this is transcendental envy, which is not wanting to see others fall down, or us going ahead of others, but seeing others as service and being inspired, and actually encouraging them to do even better, and us also tagging along and going along with them. So that is a spiritual transcendental competition, where everybody wants to basically serve the Lord and serve his pure devotees, and want to see that their service is pleasing them in a cooperative spirit. Even though externally it may look like a competition, but it is actually cooperation in spiritual world. So that should be the mood. So again, we learn so many life um, values, principles of spiritual world by reading these wonderful books of the acharyas who have come from the spiritual world to take us back home, back to Godhead. So we learn so much. Now, what we learn, we should hear, we should read, and we should apply them in our lives. Like we said, it is not important to know 700 shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, or 18,000 verses from Bhagavatam. Yes, reading them, remembering them is good. But again, the mood is not to remember them, to boast about them, that I remember so many shlokas, or I can quote so many shlokas. It is always good to quote and reference them in preaching. But again, the main point is, how many have we applied in our lives? So same thing here. Prabhupada is teaching these principles, these values. Important thing is not just reading them and forgetting them, but actually applying them in our lives. Okay, anything else anybody would like to share from today's reading?
Yes, Prabhu. So as you mentioned about, that you don't need to learn or remember every verse, it's just the mood or your bhav, which is more important. So I remember yesterday I was I was listening to Nityanand Charandas Prabhu's podcast, and he was mentioning about a devotee, a lady devotee from the congregation itself, and he mentioned that she wasn't like big in preaching, or she was just a simple devotee, helping other devotees, and um, just following like basic principles, and doing her own thing, and just serving the Lord in her own way. And at the end of her life, like as she was giving up her body, Krishna actually revealed um, her position in Goloka. So he was mentioning that she exactly knew who she was, and she was revealing that to her husband. So her husband was asking him questions like, who are you in Goloka, Vrindavan? And she was mentioning that my age is 8 year old. I actually wear this type of clothes. I have this type of complexion. And then he was asking, like, what do you do? So she was like, I just, whenever Krishna goes to herd the cows, I just help Yashodama to pack his lunchbox. And then he was asking, like, what do you do after that? Because, you don't have anything other than that. Then when Krishna goes, and she's like, I play with a ball. And then he was asking what type of ball it is. And she was mentioning everything. And then she gives up her body. So he was mentioning that not big things is not important, even like if you do small things, but with sincerity and dedication, you never know, how Krishna will be pleased, and he will reveal himself to you. So that was really beautiful to hear from him.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. 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 One thing, yeah, I always say this, like whatever, again, we see, for those who are initiated, we take the mood of our spiritual masters, what they liked, what they used to do, what was their mood of service to Srila Prabhupada. We take that, and those who are not initiated, we can, of course, Srila Prabhupada is our foremost and eternal Shiksha Guru for the whole parampara, for this ISKCON movement, the founder Acharya. So we should take his mood, and like when we read these, there are so many things Prabhupada talked about and instructed. So wherever we see our natural inclination, if we take that, one seva, and we do that sincerely, like you said, sincerely, and commit with full commitment, with full dedication, then yeah, there's everything else will just follow. So yeah, we just have to do it sincerely. That's it. I mean, it's not bhakti is not very complicated. People have made it very complicated. It is very, very simple. Like at work, we talk about yesterday, we had a development day at work where we talked about the T, the T principle. So we have to have broad, breadth, but we go deep in one thing, right? So like that, if we take one service, go deep in that. And where possible, where our capacity allows, we try to also become broad like a T shape. We go, help with some other services, when we are able to, as much as possible. But at least we take one service, we give our life to it, and that will certainly please Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. So yeah, we all should see, what is it that, our skills that Krishna has given us, how we can engage, how we can contribute, and then just do. There are so many, so like you said, these examples, I've also heard from so many devotees around the world. There's one Mataji, actually, once my Guru Maharaj was talking about one example of Srila Prabhupada disciple, I'm forgetting his name, but he's again, like that's the thing, right? The beauty of this devotees is they don't even want to be recognized. So, but Guru Maharaj actually told his name. I'm forgetting right now, but he's a very simple devotee in Canada, Montreal. He was saying, so this devotee, he is Prabhupada disciple, and he would just for 40 years. This Maharaj said this, I don't know, maybe many years ago. So, for 40 years, his service was just to wash the pot in the temple, just washing the pot. And he was so enthusiastic, Maharaj was saying, so enthusiastic. Every time Maharaj will go, he would see him, and other devotees also talk about him, but every single day at the temple, he will be there to wash the pots. Now, what kind of dedication is that? Like somebody would say, I'm Prabhupada disciple, I will do, okay. Is this what I had joined the movement for, to wash the pots? Hey, Prabhu, I've done for 5 years, 10 years. Give me some other service, or I will do this and I will do that. No, just washing pots sincerely, just one service. And because of that, he will go back to Godhead. Maharaj was talking about that. Like that, there are countless examples of humble devotees all over the world. In our congregation, we know, there's so many devotees who have been sincerely doing their service for so many years without asking a question, without saying anything, or without wanting any recognition, right? So that we sometimes ignore, but Krishna never ignores. Krishna sees those devotees first. And like when Lal Govind Prabhu was there, he said, devotees who was at the back, that Dukhi, who just used to bring water from the river to bathe the deities, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once saw and said, who's that devotee? Who's bringing this? And she was standing at the very back, right? So the mercy falls on those devotees first, who are at the back, who don't want any recognition. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for a wonderful pastime that you shared. Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody? Then we'll end here for today. Thank you so much for your kind association. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.